Welcome. I'm Karen Lips, president of the Network of Enlightened Women. New has deemed 2021 the year of the conservative woman. Through this program, we are featuring a conservative woman of the month each month. Today, I am delighted to have as our guest Senator Deb Fischer. Thank you so much for being our conservative woman of the month.
Oh, great to be here with you, Karen. Thank you.
Yes, and I'd love to share a little bit about your career. So in November 2012, you were first elected to the US Senate, becoming the first Nebraska woman elected to a full term, and then the first Nebraska state senator elected directly after your service in the state legislature. She is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Agriculture Committee. Born and raised in Lincoln, Nebraska, Senator Fischer attended the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and graduated with a degree in education. She and her husband, Bruce, have been married for more than 40 years and own a ranching venture near Valentine. They have 3 sons and 3 grandchildren. Again, we're excited to have you with us today and would love to start off by asking you, I know you've served both at the state level and the federal level. Could you talk about what made you throw your hat in the ring the first time to run for office, and then what made you decide to run for federal office?
Oh gosh, I think it just stems from what I'm interested in and what I've always thought about doing and thought would be very interesting. You know, I love politics. I especially love public policy making from a very young age. Had the fortunate um, opportunities to be able to raise our family, our 3 sons, and then serve on a lot of different boards and commissions locally and around the state. So when our sons were grown, that gave me more time to be able to run for office. So I served in the Nebraska legislature for 2 terms, 8 years. And then I had the opportunity to run for the United States Senate. And with all the boards and commissions I'd served on for 30, 35 years, I had contacts all over the state. People were very supportive, and the rest is history. You know, it really begins, though, I think, with a feeling of service and wanting to serve your community, whether it's on a school board or an ag board, a financial board, to serve your community that way. And it's recognized by people that that you're willing to be out there, and so other opportunities present themselves.
Well, it's fascinating that you served on those boards and commissions before you ran for office. And in New, we talk about how we serve as a pipeline to leadership in the conservative movement and to advancing the careers of these young women, getting them engaged in policy early in college, getting those internships that then can lead to jobs. Could you talk about what you learned in those boards and commissions that help you now, and how you really got in that pipeline and what difference that made?
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that you encourage women to do that, because a lot of times you feel like you're overwhelmed. You know, you just have so much to do. You have so many commitments, whether it's with your education, work, family. You just are really stressed, I think. But it's important not to say no. When you're asked to be on a board, when you're asked to participate in an internship, do it. Say yes. Many times, you know, we hear, "Oh, don't take on too much." I think you know yourself what too much would be for you. So when you have opportunities, I think you have to weigh that, but lean towards saying yes, because that's what's going to help you have the experience. It's going to help you network and be able to have other mentors recognize your abilities and want to encourage you to take another step towards more leadership.
Yes, exactly. And do you feel like we often hear that women, more than men, want to be asked to run? Were you asked to run for office after serving on these boards and commissions?
Kind of yes and kind of no. You know, I had always wanted to run, and I was just looking for the time to be right. To be honest with you, in your own life, it has to be the right time for you, and you have to know if there is a path to victory there. But I think it is true that women want that positive reinforcement, I guess, because I had a number of friends, a number of current office holders who also would approach me at various stages, various opportunities I was presented with, and would encourage me to step forward. Where a lot of times, the guys, they just kind of go, I should be a United States senator. And it's like, wait a minute, I can do this too, and I think I can do it just as well or better. So I think there is that difference that's out there.
Well, you mentioned some differences between men and women. Can you talk about what you notice in the Senate between your male and female colleagues? I saw that the vice president just hosted recently the female senators. Could you talk
Yeah.
about kind of your relationships with other female senators and what differences you notice among the men and women?
I think women work harder. I think we want to have as much information as possible, because we know that there's power in having that knowledge. Many times we focus more, I think, on issues, on policy, on topics, to show that we have expertise in the area. Many of the areas that I'm involved with, especially with national security and national defense, I was chairman, now ranking member on the Strategic Forces Subcommittee on the Armed Services Committee. So under my jurisdiction, we have the nuclear arsenal, we have missile defense, we have nuclear modernization, we have our deterrent, our triad. Those usually aren't considered a woman's issue, but this is my 9th year on that committee and being focused on those issues. So I think that's one thing we do. Another is establishing relationships with people across the board, with other women, of course. We see that in the Senate. Being with the vice president at her house for dinner was a wonderful evening. It was a fun evening because it's a group of women, all senators. The vice president, of course, was a former senator. So all women senators who have an understanding of what's involved in the job, what we all go through, what we all face, what we all have to deal with. So it's nice to just sit back, relax around women who have that same life experience, that same understanding, and really just have a good time. Have a few toasts and be able to.
We won't make you share those. We will not ask you to share those.
But I mean, it really was just fun, to recognize the achievement of having a woman vice president, and celebrate that, and really just to sit back and have an enjoyable evening. So that's nice. I do have close relationships in the Senate. Shelley Moore Capito is a good friend. I have relationships with male senators as well, who we work on the same issues. We travel together, and I think that's important. I wish we could get back to having those relationships again across the aisle. I think that's helpful in keeping civility in the United States Senate and in government, and not making things personal when we are trying to work for our constituents and pass what we believe is the best policy for this country.
Yeah, you mentioned working across the aisle, and one thing we try to do in New is try to identify, are there issues and what issues are there that women can come together on. It seems like the media often wants to pit liberal and conservative women against each other. Maybe that makes good headlines, but not sure it always makes good policy. So what can we come together on? I've written, for example, an occupational licensing reform. That seems to be an issue that women should be able to come together on. Could you
Yeah.
talk about what issues you see women and the men in the Senate could come together on to advance women in this country, and specifically what conservative policies you think are good for women that more folks should come and support.
Yeah, a policy that I see women focused on, and men as well, is in the Commerce Committee, and deals with infrastructure, in the broader sense, but also infrastructure being defined as broadband. And deploying broadband across this country is extremely important. I think it's almost especially important for women. So you can live wherever and still be able to work remotely, as long as you have that connectivity. But unless you have that broadband connection, you won't be able to do it. And especially women who maybe are making life choices to stay home for a little bit with their children, to still be able to work from home, that would be huge. That would be huge. You wouldn't be out of the workforce, taking a hiatus for a few years because of a choice that you're making to stay with your family. You still would be able to pursue a career and be at home to do it more with your family in that situation. So I think that's extremely important to be able to do that. Obviously, I think national defense is a women's issue. I think we narrow ourselves when we try to focus just on women's issues, because I think national defense, national security, and economic security are the two top women's issues that we have in this country. An issue that I'm just really proud of working on and getting passed is paid family leave. And we got that passed a couple of years ago. You don't hear much about it because a conservative Republican woman got it done. We got it put into the 2017 tax reform bill that we passed. And it's a program that fits, I think, our conservative principles, our conservative views of helping businesses provide this to their employees. And it's to lower wage employees who don't usually have that benefit. So the business receives a tax credit by providing this to people who make under $72,000 a year. I mean, think about it. How hard is it not to be able to have a benefit like that and still do your job and be able to provide for your family? So with paid family leave, it's not just maternity leave. It's not just paternity leave. It also includes being able to take a parent and to take care of a parent at home, to take a child to a doctor's appointment. So it's a great bill. I was thrilled to be able to get it passed and have support on a bipartisan level.
Well, I've heard you speak, Senator, about women in the workplace. And one thing that's attracted my attention is that you've talked about flexibility and how there are a lot of women, in particular working moms, who flexibility is really important, especially at a certain stage in motherhood. And
Yes.
in my view, it seems like the left sometimes leaves that out of the conversation and focuses solely on women as full-time workers and focus solely on the pay aspect, including in President Biden's most recent American Families Plan. Could you talk about the flexibility piece and how you approach women in the workplace with that in mind?
Yeah, it's flexibility that women want most. They would rather have flexibility in their schedule, in their work environment, than a pay increase. There's been studies out there that show that it's important to us to be able to accommodate schedules that are a priority for us. As I mentioned earlier, that's why I think that broadband deployment is so helpful, to be able to help women be more flexible in their careers, in their career choices. It doesn't have to be for a lifetime. People change careers all the time, and to be able to accommodate certain time periods in our lives is extremely important. So we did that with the paid family leave instead of focusing just on maternity leave. It also accounts for childcare. It also accounts for time when you're caring for parents who possibly are aging. You know that you're not there yet, Karen, but that generation who gets squeezed in there sometimes in trying to take care of everybody. Uh, I think that's so important to recognize the flexibility and figure out how we're going to provide for that for young women and women of all ages.
Well, I very much appreciate that you talk about that openly, because I think that's something that often is not discussed as much as maybe it should be. And you mentioned how you didn't necessarily get all the credit for passing the legislation as a conservative woman. So I want to turn to that, because as an organization for conservative women, our women are often under attack from the left for embracing conservative views. Could you talk about the unique challenges you face as a conservative woman senator, and how do you deal with those challenges?
Yeah, it's we don't get a lot of puff pieces written about us in
You're
the
not on the cover of Vogue?
no, we don't get those puff pieces written about us. In fact, I had a staff member who showed me recently, there was an article, I think it was in Politico, about Senator Jackie Rosen, who is a friend. She's a good senator. Wonderful piece, wonderful piece. And my staffer said, I don't think you'll ever get one of these. And I said, no, probably not. It's it's just the reality we seem to be faced with right now. You can't take it too seriously, and I think that's a quality that conservative women have. We're not victims. We are not victims. I think we have learned to embrace challenges. I think we have learned to embrace them and turn them around into opportunities. And to be able to be strong and be strong in your beliefs, whether it deals with social issues or whether it deals with economic issues. We have learned, I think, to speak up and express ourselves and really to represent the people we're elected to represent. I see that so much in younger women now. So it's exciting to be able to talk to young college women and see that they're not shy. They're going to step up and they're going to be who they are. I think that is a characteristic that conservative women have learned to embrace and have learned to be very vocal about in some instances.
Yeah, sometimes the opposition makes them, they might be a little bit shy at first, but once they get that courage to speak up, then feel very comfortable speaking up for years to come and becoming civic leaders,
Oh, yes.
which is wonderful, developing that pattern of civic leadership.
Oh, we have to. I mean, look at the direction the country's headed. I think it is so important that we don't sit back, that we do express our views, that we do talk about issues, that we have the information we need to be knowledgeable, to be articulate about these issues, so that we can make an impact. That is necessary for the times that we live in.
Well, you've talked about speaking up, and that's an important quality for leaders. Could you talk about some other leadership qualities that you feel like you've developed over the years, and what advice you'd give to young women who want to be leaders now on their campuses and hope to influence their communities in the years to come?
Yeah. I think you always have to be honest. You always have to be authentic. When I say be who you are, that is when you are the most powerful, is when you are who you are, and everybody knows that. You have to show integrity. You have to keep your word. You have to work hard. You have to be able to convince other people and be able to, you know, stand your ground and do so in a very civil way. Have manners. It's important to have manners, that we get that back in our society. I think all of that is part of leadership. It's not just your good ideas that you need to put forward, although that's important, but it's also important that you recognize good ideas from the people around you, from the team that you have, and be able to promote those as well.
Well, and how do you find you can bring civility to conversations when often the conversations don't necessarily start in a civil way?
I just think you always have to be respectful that people have different views. I think showing respect, not get into that shouting match that we see happening a lot of times. Emotions are very high, but to be able to control that, you also shouldn't be somebody's punching bag though either. You know, if you feel that your values, your views are being attacked, stand up. You need to stand up. Don't I always say, don't be somebody's punching bag on this. And I think as a woman, that's a careful line that we have to walk. We have to navigate through that, because sometimes we're not portrayed as being tough. We're not portrayed as being a strong advocate for something. Um, a lot of people like to throw it out that we react with emotion. I would say most conservative women do not react with emotion. I think we are very rational when we are in debates, when we are discussing issues. I think that's important, to stay at that rational level, and but still defend yourself.
Yes, I imagine that's a skill that you've learned throughout your many years of public service, Senator. And I know we're talking to you today as a U.S. Senator, but I want to go back to your days on boards and commissions and working at the state level. Could you talk a little bit about what are the biggest differences and successes you had at the state and local level? Because I think oftentimes there's a lot of attention on what's going on in Congress, but a lot of things are happening at the state and local level, especially for conservatives. So could you
Yeah.
talk about some of those successes and maybe encourage some of our women who are thinking about considering getting involved at the local level?
Yeah, I think it's just extremely important to be involved in your community, and whether that's, you know, with a city council or county commissioner, or with your church, with Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts. You know, there are so many opportunities out there. Um, Find something that you really want to do, because I think you have to love what you do. So find something you really want to do, and then, as I said, you get active in it. I've done a lot of different things with those boards and commissions. Um, one story I had though, and I give this as a kind of a tongue-in-cheek recommendation, but I'm serious about it. If you find yourself, which you will, as probably the only woman on a board, many times, well, throughout my career, I was the only woman in the room. You That's changing, which is a good thing. But when you're asked to take notes, or when you're asked in a group project that where, you know, they put the big papers on the wall and you do team building, for you to stand up and go take notes, don't do it. That's not a woman's job. We don't need to do that. We don't need to be the secretary of the group. We should be the president of the group. We, you know, that's important to, again, kind of, especially when you're working with different generations, nicely just say, no, I don't take notes. Basic things like that. Um, when I was in the legislature, I chaired the Committee on Transportation and Telecommunications, and I was chair of that for 6 of my 8 years. Infrastructure is not necessarily viewed as a woman's issue. But I passed a major financing bill for roads and bridges in the state of Nebraska that was outside of previous ways that we had funded roads and bridges in the state. It was a huge bill, a major policy change. To be able to take something like that on, not only was it learning and gaining knowledge about the subject matter, but it was building relationships with my colleagues as well to be able to get that done. So whether it's early in your career and perhaps you're just developing relationships, or if you've been involved in one area for a long time and you have that expertise, yeah, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for you to step forward and succeed.
Well, thank you for sharing those stories from early in your career. And I want to end by asking you if you have any recommendations on recent books that you've read. New started as a book club, and we like to keep education as a key component of the organization. So, what books
I'm
might you recommend to young women today?
Oh gosh, I'm just finishing Dewey Defeats Truman. It's about the 1948 election. Um, uh, Obviously, Tom Dewey was the Republican candidate, and I don't know if you remember, the big headline was Dewey defeats Truman, which Harry Truman is holding up after he won the presidency. It's a fascinating book. It shows, I think, adversity, and when nobody believes in you, you still believe in yourself. Because nobody believed, including his wife, nobody believed that Harry Truman was going to be elected president of the United States. He was, of course, president when Roosevelt died. He was up for election. Nobody believed that he could win, including the Democrats. But he believed in himself. I believe he stayed true to his beliefs, and he won. I like to read biographies of individuals who are able to succeed through adversity.
Well, thanks for sharing that one. I had not heard of that book, so that's a good one. I'll have to check out. And so,
Right,
well,
it's an easy read.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Senator Fischer, for being with us today and for being our featured Conservative Woman of the Month.
Thank you, Karen. Pleasure.